The foreman had the paper in his hand before the man could get both feet through the gate. It was September of 1960, and the Continental Divide construction yard outside Pueblo, Colorado, was the kind of place that smelled of diesel and red clay, and the particular sharpness of welding rod burning down to nothing. The kind of place where men showed up at 5 in the morning and worked until the light went, and nobody asked anything more of them than that. Ray Elkins had been showing up at that gate for 9 years. Same gate, same time. He drove a '52 Ford that had been blue once. 9 years, and he had never been late. Not once. The foreman's name was Dale Murch. He was not a cruel man. He was an efficient one. He had a payroll to balance, and Ray Elkins was at the top of a list that had nothing to do with 9 years of showing up. It had to do with a shoulder. Ray had come back from the Chosin Reservoir in December of 1950 with 3 toes gone from his left foot and a piece of shrapnel in his right shoulder that the surgeons at Walter Reed had decided to leave where it was. For 9 years, he had swung a framing hammer with that shoulder and never said a word about it. But Murch had watched him slow down over the summer. He had watched the shoulder go. And efficiency is efficiency. There was a production company in town that they were scouting locations along the Arkansas River for a Western, and they had a technical advisor who had come out to look at the construction site, because someone thought the scaffolding might double for a mining camp. The technical advisor had stopped for coffee in the site office and was standing now near the equipment shed with his canvas jacket and his battered Stetson. Watching the morning come in, he was watching because he had nothing else to watch. Here is the story. Ray Elkins had been in the yard before the foreman was. That was the kind of man he was. He had grown up in Trinidad, Colorado, the son of a pipe fitter who had worked himself hollow and left Ray with the name of the trade and nothing else. Ray had gone into the Corps at 19 and come back from Korea at 22, with a folder of discharge papers and a box of things that had belonged to 2 men from his fire team who hadn't come back at all. He had driven straight from the bus depot in Pueblo to the construction office and asked about work. The foreman at the time, a man named Haas, who is long gone now, had looked at the discharge papers and told him to be there Monday. That had been in the spring of 1951. In 9 years, Ray had learned every piece of equipment in the yard. He could run the crane. He could read a grade stake. He could do finish carpentry when the framing was done, and he could pour a footing truer than most men half his age. He had trained 4 apprentices, 2 of whom had gone on to foreman positions at other yards. He lived in a single-room apartment on the south side of Pueblo with his wife Dora, who worked counter at a pharmacy on Union Avenue, and a daughter named Lucy, who was 8 years old and afraid of nothing. He did not talk about Korea. He did not talk about his shoulder. He talked about the work. That September morning, he had his nail bags on before Murch crossed the yard. Murch walked straight to him. He had the envelope in his hand, not the brown kind, the white kind, which meant it was already cut. The crew was coming in around them. Murch did not lower his voice. He said the shoulder was a liability. He said the insurance carrier had flagged the injury history. He said there was a severance, 2 weeks. It was fair by any measure. He said he was sorry. Ray Elkins stood and listened. He did not look at the men who had stopped moving. He took the envelope. He read what was in it. He folded it once and put it in the breast pocket of his work shirt. He reached back and took his nail bags off with his left hand, the good one, and set them on top of a stack of lumber planks, as if he was putting them down for a coffee break. He had come in at 5 this morning, because he had come in at 5 every morning for 9 years. And this morning was the last one, and he had shown up just the same way, because that was who he was. He had come back from a reservoir in North Korea with 3 toes missing and 2 dead men's things in a box, and he had gone to work Monday. and he had not stopped working until this moment when a man with an insurance form told him to. 11 men stood in the yard, and not one of them spoke. The coffee machine in the site office ran on its timer and clicked off. A 12th man, near the equipment shed, set down a paper cup on a windowsill. Have you ever watched someone be treated like they had no history? Like the years behind them meant nothing to the man holding the paperwork? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. He was already walking before anyone understood what was happening. Not fast. Not the way a man walks when he is angry. The way a man walks when he has already made his mind up, and the rest is just distance to cover. He crossed the yard and reached Ray Elkins and stopped. Ray was still standing at the lumber stack with his nail bags. Ray looked at the man, the hat, the size of him, the canvas jacket, and did not recognize anything at first. The crew was watching. The man said, "What they give you?" Ray said, 2 weeks. The man picked up the nail bags off the lumber. He looked at them for a moment. Then he set them back down. He said, "How long?" 9 years, Ray said. The man was quiet. Something moved across his face, not anger, not quite. Something older than anger. He walked to the site office. Dale Murch was behind the desk when the door opened. He recognized the man coming through it about 2 seconds after the door was already shut. The man who came in did not sit down. He stood in the middle of the room and looked at Murch with the kind of attention that does not need to raise its voice, because the attention itself is the message. He said, "The man outside. Ray, 9 years. Murch said, "I understand, but the shoulder." His shoulder, the man said, got the way it is at the Chosin Reservoir in 1950. He paused. "I know what that is." Murch was quiet. "He comes back tomorrow," the man said. "You find him something that doesn't wreck the shoulder worse. Shop inventory. Foreman's assistant. I don't care what. You find it." Murch said, "The insurance carrier." "I'll talk to whoever you need me to talk to." He named a number. He said it as a statement, not an offer, the way a man says a measurement. He said it was for the paperwork problem, and that Murch should use it however it needed to be used. He said, "He comes back tomorrow." Murch did not say anything else. He wrote something on a notepad. The man came back outside. Ray was still at the lumber stack. The crew had not moved. The man stopped in front of Ray. He said, "You're here tomorrow. They'll have something different for you, not charity. You know things the apprentices don't know. Put that to work." Ray Elkins looked at him a long time. His mouth opened. He got one word out. Then, nothing. The man in the canvas jacket said, "You came home from the reservoir." The rest is details. He picked his paper cup off the windowsill and walked to the road and got into a truck that was idling there. Ray stood at the edge of the yard and watched until the truck was gone. Then, he stood there a while longer after it was gone. He came back the next morning. He came back the morning after that. He worked at that yard for 14 more years in materials coordination, then as assistant foreman, then as the man the apprentices came to when they had a problem nobody else could solve. He trained 11 more men in those 14 years. He came in at 5 in the morning, and he never said a word about the shoulder. He retired in 1974. At the retirement party held in the same yard, the crew standing around a folding table with a sheet cake from a bakery on Maindale Murch handed Ray a letter. It was from the company. It said what he had contributed. It said what he had built. Murch said, that day, in front of everyone, that he had made a mistake in September of 1960, and that he had been corrected, and that was the only time he ever spoke of it. Ray's daughter Lucy grew up and went to the University of Colorado in 1970 on a partial academic scholarship that Ray and Dora had saved for since she was 8 years old. She became a civil engineer. She worked for 31 years on bridge and road projects throughout the Rocky Mountain region roads that tens of thousands of people drive on today without knowing her name or how close she came to a different life. She tells the story sometimes when the people she works with seem to think the past doesn't matter. She tells them about her father standing in a yard in Pueblo in September of 19 holding a folded envelope and a man she didn't know walking across the yard toward him. She always finishes the same way. He came back the next morning. There is a photograph on the wall in Lucy's office in Denver. Ray in the yard, 1967, a hard hat pushed back on his head, squinting into the afternoon light. His right arm is down at his side. His left is braced on a surveyor's stake. He is laughing at something outside the frame. The afternoon light comes through the east window of her office at about 2 o'clock and crosses that photograph, and then moves past it, and then goes. The photograph stays. John Wayne never told anyone what he did in that yard in Pueblo. Not to the director he went back to work with that afternoon. Not to the scout who had been waiting in the truck. Not in any interview he gave that year or any year after, and there were many. Not in any letter anyone ever found. There is a particular kind of man who notices what a room has already decided not to notice. Who sees the person the paperwork has reduced to a liability. Who walks across a yard not because someone asked him to, and not because anyone was watching, but because walking was the only thing that was possible. The measure of a man is not what he does when people are watching. Most people already know that. It takes a certain kind of man to make it true every time. If this story reached you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. There are more stories like this one, and every one of them deserves to be told. And unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.